Hello and welcome to luxurytolast.com, and today I'm talking about my watch collecting experience over the past couple of years. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was that it's one of these things. As a watch collector, I've constantly my collection itself changes because I'm just basically a middle class person, and I can't afford to just buy. Often, for an expensive acquisition, I will trade one piece to pay for another piece. And I've got a few collections which are Louis Vuitton. I've also got a collection of jewelry and a collection of watches. And basically, my collection itself pays for new pieces in the collection. So basically, I would sell a piece to buy the next piece. And I've sort of come full circle. I've sort of had a few ups and downs in life, which is like everyone really. And I thought, well, in reflection, it's probably not a bad idea to sort of have a look at my collection from a couple of years ago and see how it has gone. Now, my collection, I should say, is really myself and my wife's collection. I've always liked my wife to have a few lovely pieces as well as myself, and I've certainly at times, her collection of watches has at times outweighed my collection, and it's one of these things that changes as things go on. For a period of time, my wife had two ladies Patek Philippe watches, whilst I didn't have a Patek Philippe, and I think this is the tapestry of life. One of the good things as a collector is that myself and my wife can look back on our collection and savour the different pieces that we've owned and say, yes, I remember the Jaeger LeCoultre reverse, so yes, it was this, and you can sort of reminisce. And if you're a type of person who keeps a static collection and only buys pieces when you can afford to buy them, you don't have that luxury of experimenting with pieces. And I suppose that's why my collecting philosophy has basically been to buy pieces on the used market, because if you buy wisely on the used market, you can very easily make a profit or get out of the piece with minimal loss. And I must say, I'd have to say 90% of watches that I have handled, I've always made money on. There's been a few where you inevitably lose money, and that can be because of circumstances beyond your control, like the fluctuation in currencies, and that can affect things. But generally speaking, 90% of times I've retained my investment, and if not, I've actually made a bit of money on them. And with my collection itself, a couple of years ago, I had a couple of very nice gents pieces. I had an Omega Speedmaster Man on the Moon, and then I also had a Breitling Navitimer, the old Navitimer 2, and I had a two-tone Datejust with factory diamond dial. And they were great pieces, and over a bit more time I acquired a Cartier Santos Quartz Moonphase. And then what happened was, it's one of these things. You say to yourself, well, how about I rationalize my collection? And what I do is I get one really good piece which I can wear on all occasions. And it's one of these dilemmas you have there. So I acquired a Patek Philippe in white gold. It's a Calatrava, which was been my holy grail watch for a long time, and it's probably my favourite non-complicated Pateks. It's just a beautiful piece, and to fund that there, I sold a few of my lesser pieces. I sold my Omega Speedmaster. I then sold my Breitling. I made money on all those pieces there, and then I sold my two-tone Datejust, and I then had a beautiful white gold Patek Philippe Calatrava. But it's one of these things. My thirst for watches, and then I thought, well, the white gold's a bit soft. It's probably not the wisest thing to wear that watch every day. It's probably a good idea to have a sports watch to complement it. So I then bought a Rolex Explorer 2 black dial, and I enjoyed that for some time. And then, as things happen, my wife had she had a gold President, and we had a good offer on that, so that was sold. And my wife, we put the money into a two-tone ladies Datejust with Japanese market. My wife's Japanese market dial, and also a Datejust 16234 for myself, which is a steel Datejust with a white gold bezel. And we had that as in the collection, and that was very nice. And over time, I had an offer on the Explorer 2, and the same time I had that offer, I managed to buy an Explorer 1 14270, which is the Explorer 1 with the sapphire crystal, because I owned a 1016 many years ago. The 1016 is one of the ultimate Holy Grail classic collector watches, but the sapphire version of that is a watch that I've always been greatly attracted to. So I justified selling the Explorer 2 to pay for the Explorer 1, and there's a bit of money there as well left over. And then what happened was, as things happen in life, I had someone who came to me and said, look, I really want to buy that steel Datejust that I had with the white gold bezel, the 16234. He made me an offer, and I said, well, I don't really want to sell it at the moment. I don't really need the money. Sure enough, in a matter of weeks, I needed some money. The car needed an expensive service. The school fees were due, and just a few little things like that there. So I said, right, sold, gone. And it's one of these things. I was left with two watches in my collection, the Patek Philippe and the Explorer 1, and I've yearned for another watch to add to the collection. And I've sort of, it's a strange thing, I've collected in themes. I've sort of had watches which I've said, well, I'll collect steel or white gold, the white metal type collections. Will I have just Rolex? Will it be chronographs? So you can sort of have themes to what you collect. I personally think you've got to buy things that make you happy. If collecting chronographs is your thing, that's a great idea. If collecting just beautiful pieces that you really love, well, what's to stop you doing that? And in my collection now, I had the void where I only had two men's watches in the collection, and because the Datejust I sold, and then I had a little bit of money come in, and I thought, stuff this, I want to buy a nice watch. I went and saw a dealer friend of mine in the vintage watch business, and he had a lovely Omega Speedmaster 861 movement, and I thought, yes, that's probably. I was looking at replacing the Datejust, but I really yearned for a chronograph again, and I thought that's a lovely piece to have. The Omega, I think, is one of the all-time classic sports watches, and bang per buck, I don't think there is a better buy than an Omega Speedmaster Professional Man on the Moon watch. That would have to be absolute bargain buying on the second-hand market, and so that's how my collection has evolved over time, and it's an interesting thing, because I was watching a YouTube clip about watch collecting. The video was called Time Machines, and it was very interesting to hear a collector's and a dealer's comments where a collector said, "Oh, look, I just want to." This particular collector had a Submariner, a steel Daytona, steel Submariner, no date. He had a Bulgari chronograph, and he also had a Bell and Ross. And basically, the Bell and Ross and the Bulgari tanked as far as value goes, but the no date steel sub and the steel Daytona, Zenith Movement Daytona, held their value pretty well. And he was sort of saying, look, I want to consolidate the collection into one piece I can wear at all times. And I must say, the penny dropped in my head. I had done the same thing. I had 3 beautiful watches. I had the two-tone Datejust with diamond dial. I had a Omega Speedmaster. I had a Breitling Navi timer. And I also had a Cartier two-tone moon phase. And I decided to consolidate into one piece which would make me happy all the time. And just what this dealer said, he said, oh, that's fine until all of a sudden you want one more, and that's how it goes. And the penny sort of dropped. But I must say, I don't particularly hate that. I think that's fine, because along that journey's path there, I've got a Holy Grail Patek Philippe, and that's a lovely piece to have there. I sort of thought, well, why don't I just collect Patek Philippe's? But the problem is, I probably don't want all my watches to be dress watches, and the sports Patek Philippe's are expensive. I mean, there's no question about that. Patek is a very high-end brand, and they're certainly probably. There are people who collect Pateks only, and I can certainly appreciate that type of collection. But in my own collecting, I like to have some classics. So now I've got the my collection. Now we've got the white gold Calatrava Patek, which is probably my ultimate Holy Grail watch. We've got the Explorer 1 Sapphire, which I enjoy that Explorer 1 because it reminds me of when I had the 1016, which I had for many years. That was the first luxury watch I bought, and that was just a great piece with that there. And the Omega, well, I would have to say, a Speedmaster, you can make no apologies for. It's just the all-time classic sports watch. Great buying on the second-hand market, and I don't think you'd ever lose money on that piece there. Omega's a great brand, and I think the Speedmaster Man on the Moon, the history. I mean, if Omega had stopped making the Man on the Moon watch, if they after the 70s they said, well, look, we're not going to make that model anymore, or we're going to change it in a big way, there's no way in the world I could afford to buy that piece, because it would have gone the same way as the Rolex Daytona. So in many ways there, the fact that Omega has kept that basic model in the range with very little changes to it has meant that watch is affordable, and I think it's great buying, and it's a watch that really makes me happy. I must say, I'm probably wanting to have one more watch in my collection, and I'm sort of I'm looking at many things. Perhaps a Jaeger Cultra Reverso in steel. Perhaps another Navi timer. I really enjoyed the Breitling brand. So I suppose I'll just have to wait and see what comes up at a good price, and what pushes the buttons at the time. I'm not adverse to adding a quartz piece to the collection. Some people think quartz is a really yucky thing. I must say, I had a quartz Calatrava which I bought at a discount because, of course, the quartz is not desired, and that was a lovely piece to own. I in some ways I regret selling it, but it's one of these things. I'd rather have experienced a lot of watches than very few watches, which I still have. So I hope you've enjoyed this clip here on my watch collecting habits, and please come to my free website, www.luxurytolast.com. Heaps of other reviews and heaps of information, all free of charge. Thanks very much.